Hi, I'm Dr. Frank Granito, Chief Scientist with the Institute for Digital Transformation. I want to welcome you to Digital Dialogue, where different industry experts discuss digital transformation topics and issues that are of concern to all businesses. Whether you are already a digital enterprise, or on your journey, or still trying to figure out what that all means, we know you'll find something here for you. Remember, as a LinkedIn Live session, this is your opportunity to interact with these experts. Post your comments and questions in chat for a full interactive experience. Welcome to Digital Dialogue. Well, good afternoon. Many of you know me as Dr. Frank Granito. Ma oggi io sono Chef Frank Granito. Benvenuto nella mia cucina. So today, I am Chef Frank Granito, and welcome to my kitchen. Today, we're going to do something very, very unique on our digital dialogue. Normally, we talk about digital transformation in organizations and their culture. But today, we're going to talk to some folks about personal and professional transformations. And that personal and professional transformation is from one career into being a chef. So I hope you enjoy this unique outlook on personal and professional transformation with my guests. So first, I'd like to introduce a seasoned IT senior C-level person who is a recent culinary school graduate, Chef Jim Knight. Jim, please join us. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet everyone virtually, I guess. Looking forward to a great conversation.
Excellent, excellent. Next, I'd like to introduce a current and former musician, I guess, on his way to guitar stardom. And I've been to his place and seen his guitar collection. I'd like to introduce guitar player and culinary instructor, my former culinary instructor, Chef Mike Levins. Mike.
Hi, everybody.
Excellent. Great. You could join us. And finally, this is a really unique experience. I actually partner with my next guest on some pasta gigs. So welcome a former attorney and self-described pastapreneur, Chef Lourie Boucher. Lourie, welcome. Welcome to the program. Welcome
Hi.
all. So, yes, welcome everyone to a tasty experience. Hopefully we could get into some recipes, but I don't want to do that. That's not really the focus of this show. What I wanted to get into is our personal and professional transformations and how that has impacted, us in many different ways and associated with digital transformation. So briefly, each of you, what led you to your culinary transformation? So I'll start it off briefly. My daughter went to culinary school, became a pastry chef. I saw her on her first day of school and in her uniform, and I was very, very jealous. I found out that if you're of a certain age, tuition is free. So I decided to be more than a home cook. I decided to go to culinary school. I paid for, anyway, I started in 2019 and finished last year. So from a home cook to private chef. So Jim, tell us your story briefly.
Sure. So I put myself through college working in restaurants, some fast food, one was called Ground Round. Some people may know it. Think 𝗙𝗵𝗺 type restaurant. I don't think they're around anymore. I remember loving it. And I always loved to cook. My whole family, believe it or not, my mom was the only one. I have 4 brothers. My mom was the only one who really didn't cook. Everyone loved it. Had a very successful career, worked my way up to C-level IT, CIO of a major insurance company. They got acquired, opened my own business, and became a coach, executive coach, as well as IT management consulting. And I run a leadership development program. But I always had this yearning to want to do more with cooking, and decided in the end of 21 that I was going to go to culinary school, been putting it off for whatever reason, just putting it off, and then said, I'm going to do it. Did it, loved the journey itself, not just, what ended up being, a certified chef, if you would.
Mm-hmm.
I've been hosting many dinner parties. I've done some private gigs. I had an internship as part of the learning experience. And I'm going to get back into more of that. In September, I just helped my dad move into assisted living. So I took a little bit of a break.
Right.
I'm anxious to get back into it.
It's incredibly rewarding. So, Chef Mike, I think you were on your way to being a guitar star, a rock star.
I was trying, yes. I'm still trying.
Before you tell your story, I will say that Chef Mike is a well-decorated chef. And if you could show your certifications on your,
where are they? Right
there,
Wow.
many certifications. So tell us.
A lot of alphabet soup there.
Yeah. What is your story?
Well, my story is that in high school, I saw a guitar in a pawn shop that I wanted. And we lived in the same apartment complex as my grandparents. And I asked everybody in the family, this is all I want for Christmas. This is all I want for Christmas. And I'll remember it was a Sears Silvertone guitar that had an amp built into the case. And back then it was less than $100. And everybody said, no, you're getting the usual stuff for Christmas, which was clothes, socks, that kind of stuff. So they said, if you want it bad enough, you'll find a way to get it. And we were living in Poughkeepsie, New York at the time. I got a job at 𝗙𝗿𝗵𝐻𝗸 Pizzeria, and music and culinary have run parallel, since 9th grade. And as you said, you've seen the guitar collection. The guitar collection is growing. So check Instagram. There's more pics up.
Yeah, I saw that. And your electric drum set was pretty cool. I need to get one of those. I'm too. Yeah, yes, that's correct. Chef Lori, tell us your story. I mean, I know your story. I've heard it many times, but tell us your story.
So my story is I was an attorney. I've always wanted to be an attorney from probably the age of 10. I don't know why, but I was just very laser focused on doing that, and I did. And for the first 15 years, I worked with firms and I did a lot of medical malpractice and litigation. I loved it. I went out, opened my own firm, which I ran for about 15 years. And throughout that time, I've always been a very passionate home cook, but like Jim, I wanted to kind of more formalize what I knew or what I didn't know, I guess, about cooking. So in 2017, my kids were getting a little older, starting to go to college. Parents were starting to have some medical needs. I couldn't quite practice the way I was used to practicing, which was many long hours, which I loved. So I decided to go to culinary school, step back a little bit, modified my practice to just do mostly mediation, and loved the journey as well. The pasta piece of it was always something that was sort of in the background. And that sort of ramped up as I was going through culinary school, where I just became just completely laser focused on pasta. So I really enjoyed school. In fact, I'm starting up again this Monday. I have 2 classes to finish a baking and pastry degree.
Right.
Finished my culinary one back in 2020. So I love learning. I love the knowledge. And even though I probably won't do a lot of the things that I learn in school, and I'm not interested in opening a restaurant or being a line cook or anything like that, I just love food. So
Yeah.
that's my story.
Yeah. And Lori and I met in culinary school, and we have each taken several classes from Chef Mike. So it's all really cool.
And for those that are watching, if you follow Lori and Frank on Instagram, I would like to take credit for all the skill that they display, but they had that skill before they got to me.
Yes, that's
Thank you. You're too kind.
We have a comment from Michael here. Creativity is a theme that runs through all successful people, chef, musician, founder. Love seeing the connections here. Yes, and we're going to get into some of that. That's a really great comment. What I'd like from each of you is to discuss how your previous career or job skills, job sets prepared you for being a chef. And I'll just kick it off. One of the things I learned first off was the order of production of things. And as soon as I saw that, I immediately went to my project management certifications. You know, sequencing of events, preheating the oven before you started your baking. If you look at any baking instruction, it's preheat oven, preheat oven, preheat oven. And that's basically a start-to-start relationship as a project manager. So that's one of the first pieces of skill sets that I took forward into culinary. So Jim, how about you?
Yeah, great question. So being in IT, project management, and I was about to, when you brought up the question, I thought exactly what you just talked about. Project management, you got a task, got to get it done. Here's a sequence, you do it. Kind of process management too. IT is very process oriented when you do it right. Teamwork, right? You're on the line. It's all about teamwork, right? And communication. You're talking to each other, you're covering what's going on, that type of thing. Working under pressure. IT is a high pressure, many times, very high pressure. You got systems down, you got to get up right away. There's no time for any, let's say, slacking off, or excuse the way I put this, BS. And bottom line is, you got to get it done.
Yeah,
right?
Not unlike a production kitchen, is it?
Exactly, not at all. It's a lot the same. When I was in college, I wanted computer science from the get-go. I didn't make the connection as much, but then when I got into culinary school and then the internship and some restaurant work, it clicked big time in terms of different thing, same way to go about it.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I think we all have those kinds of stories. Chef Mike, what skills did you learn as a musician, and how did those things transcend career into culinary, actually being a professional chef?
Well, there's so many. The one thing that I think people will not realize is we don't use the term brigade in the music business. We just have people that are supporting us. We have our techs, we have roadies, we have the people that drive the vans and all of that. But when you think about it, it's truly a brigade, like in the kitchen.
Correct.
That everybody has a role. Everybody's role is equally important, because if we don't have our sound guy there at our sound check, we don't sound right. If our saucier doesn't show up, we're in trouble for the dinner rush. So working within the brigade and having the trust of all the people around you doing the right thing, that was like a life lesson that I think about every day.
And one of the things I learned from working in organizations on most of my career is that, you have that organization and you have that brigade, but not everybody knows their role. I mean, what am I doing? If you're in a kitchen, a production kitchen, and in the brigade, the guy working or young lady working the grill knows their job, knows their role. Otherwise, it's not happening, and everybody needs to come together as a team. So excellent points, Mike. So Chef Laurie, from the legal perspective or your experience as an attorney, what did you carry forward?
Well, like Chef Mike said, there's so many things, but the thing that stood out immediately for me was just the concept of mise en place. Everything having a place. And anyone that's worked with me, especially Frank, knows the first time someone works with me, I am so detail oriented. It's almost to a fault. Same with
Don't get me started. Don't get me started, Chef.
I know. Don't worry. You've had 2 years of me. You know me now.
We know each other. So now we've
those watching, Laurie prepares for lab classes like she's going before the Supreme Court. She would come in with her legal pad of notes with detailed items of what goes in what recipe, when she should do them. I have never seen a more organized student in my life.
Now, I'm going to take that as a compliment at this
point.
Oh,
absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that was probably the biggest thing. I'm sort of approached life that way. The same thing, what Frank was saying, just, production and how things are going to flow. I'm very much as an attorney, there are situations that you do have to learn how to respond to on the fly. Your client may say something on the stand, you don't know what to expect. You have to be able to tackle the unexpected. And I think that's the same with culinary too. Sometimes things don't work out. Sugar's not going to caramelize or something's going to burn. So you have to figure it out, make it work. So, but really it's more just the preparation aspect is what responded with me.
Yeah. And you are well prepared. So you're a type A, I'm a type C, and type C is people who can work with type A's. I don't know. I'm gonna have to write about that in some article somewhere. Yeah. Here, the next thing I wanted to chat about a little bit, and this kind of rolls into the previous question, and Chef Lori, you touched upon it. What are the chef skills that transcend disciplines? And you kind of touched upon that, Chef Lori. I'll kick that off. For me, you stole my mise en place, which is basically organization. But the other thing is what that leads to is proper preparation. So for those of you who don't understand the concept of mise en place, I'll give you a little background. Mise en place is basically French for everything in its place, meaning all your food products, all your equipment, everything ready to go. So this kind of leans into the Institute's concept of digital readiness. If you're going to transform, you need to be ready. If you're going to do some sort of production work, you need to be prepared. You need to be mise en place and organized, ready to go. And I think that's a skill set that transcends almost any discipline. So Chef Jim, what are your thoughts on that? What skills have you found that transcend discipline and that is basically something that maybe we need to have organic in everybody?
Okay, great question. I'm going to go to mise en place also. In IT, and I have others I'll add to, but in IT, especially IT projects, we kind of use a carpenter saying, measure twice, cut once. Right? Be ready for what's about to. Don't start until you're ready. Right? And it's kind of a similar concept. And also I would say just the idea of real hardcore teamwork, right? We kind of all touched on it a little bit. If, being able to communicate and also understand where you are in the team, but where everyone else is at the same time. So if I'm on grill and everything's working fine, but the person on saute is really struggling and I have a few minutes, I hop over and help out. So there's that part of it, just really understanding where you are on a team and how you can contribute to, I'm not just a grill person. I'm part of this whole restaurant, so to speak.
That's interesting. Let's dig into that a little bit. And Jim, I'm gonna stay on you for a while on this, and maybe we can go around. The whole concept of teamwork and the teamwork under stress, and for some reason, for me, that's something that really we don't see enough of in an organization. Like if you're having problems with this, I have a few minutes, I will help you. And sometimes in organizational culture, it's every man for himself. It's not enough that you succeed, someone must fail, right?
Right.
But in a kitchen or a production system, the goal is clear. Get that food out to that table. In organizations, maybe our goal isn't quite as clear, and hence we don't have that sense of urgency. So Jim, I'll ping on you to kind of comment on that. We'll go around the room.
It's actually a great point, right? In restaurant work, what the end goal is, right? A very satisfied customer. A lot falls under that umbrella, speed, quality, visual, all that, right? In the IT world, it's a challenge because a lot of people on the IT side, we're worried about the cost and time of a project, so to speak, right? But the partner wants the outcome, right? And there was a saying I would use all the time, why do you go to Home Depot? Why do you buy a drill at Home Depot? and the answer really is you didn't buy a drill, you bought the hole. Meaning, I don't know if you understand what I mean by that. So I said it wrong too. But the idea is when you go to Home Depot to buy a drill, you're not buying a drill, you're buying the output it produces.
Yeah, the outcome, right?
And the outcome, exactly, which is a hole, so to speak, right? Or why do you buy a treadmill? Not to run, to be healthy or lose weight, right? In IT, we have to remind them a lot of that. Like, it's not about, why are we really doing this? What is the customer, the business partner looking for? In a restaurant, much clearer. You know what the outcome is.
Right, right. Yeah.
When I was
that's really
dreaded, I dreaded it. Right. So, oh, that was me.
Yeah.
That was totally me. I didn't do my part. Thankfully, it's never happened. I would, but I mean, in my latest endeavor.
And that's a really, really profound point, Jim, that we're in a typical organization. We're concerned about some sort of terminal value, not the instrumental value, right?
Exactly.
We're concerned too much about the drill, not the proper size of the hole, and the hole that needs to be for the doorknob, which opens the door and lets you get in and out of the house, et cetera, et cetera. So that's interesting. Chef Mike, so what do you see as skills that transcend disciplines?
Well, I'll tell you this, because this has been on my mind as I've been looking over to the side at the last prefix menu we did for our restaurant class, that a prefix menu, a tasting menu, a chef's table is really a set list, that I look at that like, what's a good opening number? If we're playing a new place that I have a brand new audience that doesn't know my band, what am I going to play that gets their attention instead of them walking up to the bar, and leaving the stage area?
Right.
How can I take them? Is it a 45-minute set? Do we have a 90-minute set? What is the progression? And then where do we start plugging things in? And then how do we finish?
Right.
So I use that in my mind whenever I start to plan menus with students. I think
that's a great analogy.
That is a great analogy.
And as everyone's saying, the brigade in the kitchen, you are as strong as your weakest link. And sometimes your weakest link isn't weak, they're just new. And they just need to know how to operate within the brigade. And going back to the music, the band members all know the tunes. We all know our parts. And Frank, I know you're a drummer, so you know the tunes, right?
Yeah.
A lot of us can just show up to a gig and play because you just say it's in the key of G, go, and we can take it from there.
Right.
But does your sound engineer know that? Does the lighting guy know that? You have to understand that there's a lot of other pieces to this. Is there a band coming on after us? Are we leaving the gear on stage? Or are we taking it off? They're going to play some house music, turn the lights off and go. There's a lot of details that people don't see. And in restaurants, they don't see it because in most cases, they just see the food that hits the table and don't know what it took to get there.
Right.
So there are a lot of unsung heroes in both. And that's why, when I had the two of you in class, we do the, final student menu that you all come out and take a bow, because it is really about you and what you created and your journey through the program. And I love that you all got a chance to go out and talk to the guest and explain all the stuff that you did. So music is the same way. You thank the roadies, you embarrass them when you can up on stage, when they're running across to, replug in an amp or something like that. And you go, hey, here's my guitar tech, put the spotlight on them. So
there's a lot of good nuggets in there, Chef. And then the nuggets are, again, we focus on teamwork. You're only as good as your weakest team member. Feed them sauce.
That's a great yes.
Yeah, it's great. Way to go, Roy. That's perfect. And some of the nugget you just left there, where we come out and you let the brigade take a bow. Now we talk about why don't we do more of that in organizations where we do recognition, and the fact that in the band that I played in, we were all good, but as individuals, we weren't stars. When we came together as a team, we were better than each individual.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I think, another lesson that we can take, back and forth that transcend disciplines, the teamwork and recognition and other nuggets that came out of that. Chef 𝗚𝗏, so what are some of the talents or nuggets that you've seen that transcend disciplines, that it doesn't matter if you're a chef or an attorney or maybe even a musician or a CIO? What in your experience, what do you say?
So I would say that, understanding what the end goal is. So in a trial, you have to understand what is the end goal and understanding all the components you need to get there. So I'll analogize it to when we do one of our pasta classes. The end goal is to get people proficient in making pasta. You want them to be happy. There's definitely like a set plan at the end of the day. So, but how do you get there? So it's, I think it's similar in that respect. I've never worked in a restaurant other than as a bartender or a waitress. That's what I did to put myself through college and law school. But definitely also teamwork, and ability to communicate well. I find that's a huge thing, because when I would practice, I would have to work very hard to, I hate to say spoon feed, but be able to express a concept or express the law in a way that someone would understand. And it's very similar when it comes to teaching someone how to make pasta. I have to really break it down into, how am I going to get this concept understood by someone who may have no familiarity with it. So many people that were my clients had never been into a courtroom. They didn't know how it worked. They didn't know the laws. So my job was, let me get you to the end, but I want you to understand the process as we get there. I don't, so it's the same thing. Effective communication in a way that your audience can understand and digest.
Right. Understanding the level of skill and comprehension of your audience, whether or not you're teaching a class or giving a presentation in a boardroom, Jim, or in a courtroom with a client. It's being able to understand and communicate at the proper level, let's say, and get your message across. And I think that's another skill.
And Frank, I'd like to add this, and the two of you have heard me, and I'm sorry, Jim, I've not had you in class. Maybe I will one day. But I would always talk about how in the kitchen, in a brigade, you can tell in 2 seconds who's an OCD type person, who's an ADD type person, right? Now, with that, right, and you both know I'm pretty ADD. I say something brilliant and I forget 3 seconds later, which is why I give you all notebooks. If I say something brilliant, please write this down and remind me.
I still have the notebook, by the way.
But I think part of it is in looking at the brigade, whatever the industry, who do you have? Who is the one that you want? The OCD people, you want making the baguettes every day because you're going to have perfect baguettes every day because it's very ritualistic. It gets, mixed a certain way. It gets in the proofer a certain way. It's baked and it's perfect. An ADD person can't do that job. I will always joke that I'll look at it. Has it doubled in size? Can I do it now? Can I bake it now? I am the wrong person to do that. And finding the tasks that make sense for each person in the industry just really lightens the load. And it does take a little bit of questioning the people around you and some observation. But when you put the right personalities on the right tasks, it just enhances everything else that you do.
That is really, really good. And that's something that we can take almost to any.
Here, wait, I'll write that down in my little notebook.
Before you forget.
But understanding the talents and skills and personalities of your team and assigning the right role or tasks to those to get the most of your team. That's really, 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 really good advice. So I'd like for my final question here and discussion point, what have you learned as a chef that is helping or continues to help with your continual improvement and transformation journey? And I'll kick it off, and that is what I have found in my transformation journey that I can apply to almost any discipline is that sometimes the best outcomes come from serendipity and happy accidents. And I think organizations need to understand that and be able to absorb risk and say, let my people be creative because something good may really happen there. And I know and I've been in the kitchen, and some of the best things, I won't say best things, but some good things have come out of happy accidents and serendipity. So that's my example of how being a chef has helped me through my continual learning and transformation journey. Chef Jim, tell me what you think.
I agree with your point too, for sure. Happy accidents. Also, and I probably have to go deeper in explaining this next point, but sometimes better is the enemy of good enough.
Yeah.
Right? Where, okay, sometimes time is of the essence, right? You got to get it out. And if you're the OCD type, like Chef Mike was talking about, and you don't need an OCD angle on this, it has the right cross hatches on it, and it's on the plate perfectly. You don't have to worry. The posse is right in the middle. All right, so it's off center a little bit. That's fine.
Right.
So, and I noticed it a lot. And one gentleman I worked with, a sous chef who so OCD, and it got in his way all the time. Now I understand the part about baking where that definitely plays more into it, right? Because we did a month of baking, and I'm less OCD, but not necessarily ADD. But baking was a challenge for the precision you required just to make sure everything happened a certain way at a certain time, blah, 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 right? So it's definitely that, like really understanding, what's good enough. And
right.
It could have this, as far as the customer is concerned, it didn't make a difference. So the posse, to use that example, the posse was in the middle versus maybe, 1 o'clock if it was on a clean cloth to the side, right?
Right.
Now, fine dining, that may be different, but,
But at Applebee's, not so much, right?
Exactly, or somewhere in between.
Yeah, and Roy makes a good point here. Happy accidents. Not only do organizations need to leave space for this to happen, but also need to be willing to put discoveries into practice when they are beneficial. Mm-hmm. That's a really good point, Roy. I mean, the happy accidents occur, but you want to make sure they become legacy. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, let's integrate that. And building on your point, Jim, the different personalities. Who do you want as a baker versus who do you want, in savory? Because in savory or standard culinary, you can fix things all the way up until service. But once you put something in the oven, you're committed, right? You can't fix it. So there's a lot of parallels there in organizations and projects. There's some things like, well, we won't get into it, but you can see the analogies intuitively. So, Chef Mike, same question to you. What things have you learned as a chef? And jazz is a series of happy accidents. It is. Absolutely, Roy. I think Roy's a musician too.
I think so.
Yeah, as I recall, because we've had discussions on that. So go ahead, Chef. I don't want to step on you.
Well, one of the things that I've always said, in letting the creative process happen, and the kitchen allows that to happen, is I never name anything until it hits the table. Right? I might go in with an idea of this is what I'm doing. And for whatever reason, a million things go wrong and something comes out that is a happy accident. And now you can name it. Right.
Right.
I think the kitchen, unlike a lot of other industries, we kind of set up the happy accidents. You give a new cook, a chance to make family meal or something. that we have those avenues built in, that you limit them in the beginning. You can use X, Y, and Z, or, the first shelf in the walk-in, make family meal for 20 people. And then sometimes that stuff makes its way onto the menu.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've always looked at, and like now struggling with as a musician, because before, I always got hung up on, who's the best guitar player in the world? What makes somebody the best guitar player in the world? When it really dawns upon me that, my favorite musicians, regardless of instrument, them the second you hear them. I can't say that Jimmy Page is better than Eddie Van Halen or that Eddie is better than Jimi Hendrix, but I know them the second they're on the radio. Right. And I think chefs, same deal. Music, we have scales, we have chords, we have basic harmony that everybody uses. And then, you give that to 3 different musicians, you get 3 very different things. In the kitchen, it's the same thing. We're all working with essentially the same color palette. Every restaurant has chicken and basil and garlic and all of that. And then each chef puts their stamp on it. And I guess when you get high enough, that people go, oh yeah, that's a Chef Frank plate. That's a Chef Lori plate. Like it when you see it. Yeah. And I think that is really something that I keep striving for in both worlds.
Yeah, I love that. Don't name a dish until it's complete. And I think we can really take that into organizational learning. So let's work on it. And when it's done, if it works out, we'll call it something. And I have plenty of dishes in my family cookbook that are called stuff like Hannah's favorite pasta, Nani's chicken. We don't know what else to call it, but it's just good stuff. Chef Lori, I'll conclude with you. What are the skill sets as a chef that have helped you in your continual journey of learning and transformation?
So, that's a hard one to answer. I would say I like the concept of happy accidents, because in the law, that doesn't really exist.
Yeah,
you missed a deadline. So I would say. But
aren't there creative interpretations of the law that you've seen?
The law is very creative, in my opinion, in the written word and also with litigation. So that's the way you are creative. I appreciate the creativity that I can do in a kitchen that's completely different from practicing law. And I think for me, what's helped is that I don't have to be that OCD person, that I know I am and I embrace it. But I think in the kitchen, particularly, it's tempered a little bit. Frank, you might not think so, but it definitely has tempered my feeling of needing to be perfect all the time.
Either that or I've learned to live with it.
But it's interesting. Someone talked about like the just cooking versus baking. I'm working part-time in this bakery. And I was actually there all morning, and I'm by myself. The owner has given me a key. So that actually is a good feeling. He trusts me to put some of this production together. But you're right. You have to be so focused on everything. And particularly because it's someone else's business, would get very anxious. But I've actually gotten a lot of more self-confidence from going through my culinary journey. So, we can get to the whole topic about imposter syndrome and all that.
Right.
I didn't have it as an attorney, but definitely when I started cooking, I did. Just questioning, do I know what I'm doing? Do I really know as much about pasta as I think I do? And, Frank, I'm still like that. Yeah, I still question things.
Well, the imposter syndrome is actually unique in almost every industry, whether you're a programmer or a musician or a culinarian. Just before we close out and before I say thank you to all my guests, not sure that everybody understands the concept of family meal that Chef Mike mentioned. And family meal is just basically an internal staff meal. So that's what you might assign a new cook in the kitchen to do, is serve something internally rather than directly to the customers. And yes, Michael, You're judged by the outcome, not your intentions. Yeah, I intended to make that steak medium rare, but it didn't come out that way.
So now we're having fajitas.
Yeah,
And I would love to say this, and I tell all my students this. I love football, American football, and Herm Edwards was one of my favorite coaches. And his best quote ever is, "A plan that can't be changed is a bad plan." So there are mistakes that happen in the kitchen, and we just turn the overcooked steak into another dish. We make it work.
And just like mistakes on stage, you just keep going. Hey, you know what? I really, really appreciate everyone's time today. Chef Jim, Chef Mike, Chef Lori. And for those of you who are on, I hope you enjoyed this unique take to our digital dialogue today of taking ourselves through personal and professional transformation from whatever you do into being a chef and learning about the talents and skills that chefs need and that indeed everybody needs. So thanks very much for listening to this digital dialogue, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
The same here.
Thank you for joining our digital dialogue. Be sure to join our next digital dialogue on the first and third Tuesdays of every month.